The morning Marcus Hale found the bolt, the sun had barely cracked the horizon over Clover Ridge, Tennessee, and his hands were already stained black with grease. It was an ordinary Tuesday in October, the kind of day that smells like cold motor oil and burnt coffee, the kind of day a man like Marcus never expected to change his life. He was flat on his back beneath a silver sedan that belonged to a woman named Patricia Voss, a quiet, silver-haired retired schoolteacher who had brought her car in complaining of strange vibrations, when his flashlight caught something that made his stomach drop. There, tucked behind the oil pan in a place no factory bolt had any business being, was a single titanium bolt, machined too cleanly, threaded too precisely, attached to a small black box no bigger than a paperback novel. Marcus lay there in the cold for a long moment, staring up at it, and felt something he hadn't felt in years, the cold, crawling certainty that something was very, very wrong. If you believe in kindness and second chances, hit that like button, drop a comment below, share this story with someone who needs it, and subscribe to Echoes of Stories, because every story we tell here is about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Marcus Hale was 43 years old, a man built from hard years and harder choices. He had grown up in Clover Ridge, the kind of small town where everyone knew your name and your business, and he had stayed because leaving felt like a betrayal of the only place that had ever loved him back. He ran a one-bay garage on the edge of Route 9 called Hale's Auto, a place so small that when two cars came in on the same day it was considered a rush. The shop smelled permanently of rubber and WD-40, and above the door hung a framed photograph of his daughter, Rosie, age 7, gap-toothed and laughing, taken the summer before her mother packed a bag and drove west and never came back. Rosie was 11 now and lived with Marcus full-time, sleeping in the small room above the garage and doing her homework at the parts counter while Marcus worked. She was the only reason he stayed open on days when the bills were eating him alive. She was the only reason he stayed open at all. The garage had been struggling for 2 years. A big chain shop had opened 6 miles down the highway, shiny lifts, digital diagnostics, a lobby with a coffee machine, and Marcus had watched his regulars drift away one by one. He had started cutting his own wages to make payroll, eating sandwiches for dinner, telling Rosie they were having a camping meal when he couldn't afford anything that needed to be cooked. He was 3 months behind on the shop lease and had a court summons sitting on his desk that he hadn't been able to bring himself to open. Every morning he woke before dawn and drove himself back to that garage because he didn't know what else to do, because the work was all he had left of himself, and because Rosie deserved to see her father show up even when showing up hurt. He had taken Patricia Voss's car in as a favor. She had been coming to Hale's Auto for 9 years, back when Marcus's own father still worked the front desk. Marcus charged her half his usual rate without saying so, and she brought him sweet potato pie every Christmas without saying why. When she called about the vibrations, he told her to bring it in first thing. He wasn't expecting anything unusual. He was never expecting anything unusual. But that bolt was not factory. That box was not from any parts catalog he had ever seen. Marcus slid out from under the car slowly, sat up on the cold concrete floor, and thought for a long time. He photographed everything with his phone, careful not to touch it. Then he called his only friend who understood cars better than he did, a retired state trooper named Wendell Cross, who had moved back to Clover Ridge after 20 years working auto crime cases in Nashville. Wendell answered on the second ring, and when Marcus described what he had found, there was a silence on the other end of the line that said everything before a single word did. Wendell was at the garage within the hour, crouching under the car with his own flashlight, and when he stood back up his face had gone the color of old chalk. He told Marcus quietly, in the tone of a man choosing each word like a step across ice, that what Marcus had found was a remote-controlled brake inhibitor, a device designed to cause a vehicle to lose braking function on command. It was wired to a cellular receiver. Someone could trigger it from miles away. Wendell had seen one like it before, years ago, in an investigation that had eventually linked 17 staged fatal accidents across 4 states to a network of corrupt insurance adjusters, bent attorneys, and a shadowy logistics company that had collected nearly $90 million in fraudulent wrongful death and injury claims. That investigation had gone cold. Several key witnesses had recanted. The ringleader had never been charged. And now, here in a one-bay garage in Clover Ridge, Tennessee, the thread had surfaced again. What followed were 3 weeks that Marcus would never fully be able to describe to Rosie, or to anyone. Wendell brought in a contact at the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Marcus was asked to keep the car, keep working, say nothing. He cooperated fully, terrified, going through the motions of ordinary days while federal agents quietly built a case around the device in his garage. Patricia Voss was told only that her car needed extended repairs, and Marcus absorbed the guilt of that lie by reminding himself what would have happened to her on the highway if that bolt had done its job. He didn't sleep well. He didn't eat much. He checked on Rosie every night before he went to bed, watched her sleeping face in the dark, and felt the weight of what he was carrying pressed down on his chest like an engine block. The arrests came on a cold Thursday morning, 8 of them across 3 states simultaneously, coordinated and clean. The man at the center of it, a smooth-talking regional insurance executive named Conrad Price who had been operating out of Knoxville for 15 years, was taken into custody at his kitchen table while his coffee was still brewing. The total scope of the fraud, as federal prosecutors would later announce, exceeded $90 million and had been linked to 11 deaths that had been ruled accidents. 11 families who had never known the truth. 11 lives that had ended not by chance but by design. Marcus found out about the arrests the same way the rest of Clover Ridge did, a news alert on his phone while he was under another car. He sat with it for a while, alone in the quiet of the garage, the sound of the space heater filling the silence. He thought about those 11 people. He thought about Patricia Voss driving that silver sedan down the highway, unsuspecting. He thought about Rosie upstairs, asleep, safe. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a man who had simply refused to look away from something that needed to be seen. The state of Tennessee awarded Marcus a formal commendation. A local attorney, moved by the story, forgave the back rent on his shop lease and refused to take payment. A Knoxville news segment ran the story and something unexpected happened. People started driving past the chain shop 6 miles away and pulling into Hale's auto instead. Not because it was flashy. Because it was honest. Because word spread the way word spreads in small towns, mouth to mouth and heart to heart, that the man who worked there was the kind of man who, when it mattered, did the right thing. Rosie heard the whole story on a Sunday afternoon, sitting on the parts counter eating cereal, while her father stood in the middle of his garage with grease on his hands and tears he was pretending weren't there. She listened without interrupting, the way she always did, her dark eyes serious and steady. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she climbed down off the counter, walked over, and hugged him around his middle without saying a word. Marcus pressed his face into the top of her head and breathed. Outside, the October sun was high and golden, coming through the garage door in long clean bars of light, and somewhere down Route 9 a car was turning off the highway, heading toward Hale's auto, and the day was still going. Before this story ends, drop a comment with just the word "Bolt" if this story moved you. It means more than you know, and it lets us know to keep telling stories like this one. If this story reminded you that ordinary people carry extraordinary courage in their hands every single day, that a greasy garage floor can be the place where justice begins, then please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Echoes of Stories. Every story here is real in the ways that matter most. Marcus Hale may be one man, but the choice he made, to see, to speak, to stay, belongs to all of us.